Here, join with me. Life. This is our time I call day after day with Rayburn. I'm in Florida. I have the ocean at my back, and just really enjoying some time with Donna and enjoying some time with the Father. And very practical passage of Scripture that I want you to look at in Psalms chapter 8. I love the Psalms. I read it through numerous times every year. Why? Because it's so practical. It's so real. There's so much of the Psalms that I learn about life, about how sometimes that David and writers will just share their personal struggle. Well, Psalms chapter 8, David writes, "When I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you have ordained." I could add, by the way, I could say the oceans. Everything God has ordained. When I consider the greatness of it, the impact of it, David says, "What is man that you take thought of him?" What David's trying to say is, what's so special about me? So much bad about man, about the human spirit or the culture. There's so much bad. When I consider all that you've made, how is God so mindful of the bad? Well, interesting thought. If you go to Matthew chapter 16, verse 26, God kind of puts forth a question and says, "What will you give in exchange for your soul?" It's really a question of worth. David says, "What's man that you would take thought of him?" He asked the question, Matthew, what is your soul worth? What's the value? What would you give in exchange for your soul? It's a penetrating question. Well, back to Romans 8. What is man? Well, God said in His Word in Romans chapter 5:8, while man was still a sinner, at his worst, I died. God answers the question from His perspective. He says, what's the soul worth? Well, it's worth the life of my Son. Because you see, without Jesus, there's no way to get to God. None. Zero. There is no other way. God says the value of man is so high that I'm going to give my Son. That's how much I love man, to give my Son. It's the only way. My value is worth His life. There you go. He answers it. I have great value to God. I do. Matthew chapter 5, he goes on and says, let your work show it. If you want to be grateful for what I've done, show it. Just give your life to the good of others, to the bringing me to others. Devote your life to the cause of bringing me to the world. That's the value that I have. God says, you're so valuable, I give my Son. And if that's the case, then give yourself to me. Just give yourself to me, to that cause. When I consider, David was considering the work of God and trying to say, what's my value? God says, hey, your value, I give my Son. That's how valuable you are. I just want you to give yourself to me. I hope you'll think about that. Matthew chapter 8. Psalms chapter 8, Matthew chapter 16, Romans chapter 5, seeking the Father. That's what I'm doing, seeking the Father. And I hope you'll join with me in seeking the Father. This is Rayburn Hare, Day After Day with Rayburn, and join with me, Life.